How did a gifted singer, who only wanted to entertain and delight people around the world, become one of the entity's most disturbing and feared hunters? This is the story of the Krasue. Burang Sukapat grew up in Thailand and earnestly desired to share her gift with the world. But despite auditioning time and time again for the opera, she was only ever offered a role as an understudy. With every attempt and every failure, her desire for fame grew. But then one day, a fellow singer named Malai reached out to Burang with an offer that would forever change her life in both marvelous and horrifying ways. Malai held up a glass bottle, filled with a simple clear liquid. "Drink this," she said, as she handed Burang the bottle. But then she continued, her tone taking a dark and somber turn. "But once you do, something else will take you over at night. But like me, you will find success on stage," she said. Burang laughed at the warning, not taking it seriously. But she wanted more than anything to break out of her understudy rut, so she decided to give it a shot, taking the bottle and drinking everything within. At first, nothing much noticeable changed. But then after a few weeks, Burang did feel like her skin was getting softer, and her voice had a depth to it that she hadn't noticed before. It wasn't just her who noticed either. During her next audition, the director was enraptured by her singing as it echoed through the theater. The response was phenomenal. She had never seen him be so enthusiastic about her voice. She was midway through thanking him for the opportunity when she was interrupted by a coughing fit. She quickly covered her face with a handkerchief to finish coughing, and when she pulled it away, it was covered in blood. Her blood. Slightly embarrassed, but not wanting to make a scene, she quickly hid it away so that no one would notice and put it out of her mind. She had finally found the success that she was looking for, and she didn't want anything to distract from that. She went to sleep that night, still swooning with excitement from the incredible audition. But as she slept, she felt something warm on her body. This startled her awake, and she sat up to turn on the light, but it wasn't there. She slowly realized she wasn't even in her room. She was laying in someone's yard, and the warmth she felt was her body covered in fresh blood. Panic set in as she looked around, trying to understand what was happening. That's when she noticed she was next to a chicken coop, surrounded by feathers and bird guts. It was still dark out, so she was able to carefully make her way home without being spotted. She immediately jumped into the shower and turned it as hot as she could stand in order to wash off the blood and gore. As she stood there, straining to piece together what had happened, she began to vomit blood. She started sobbing as a terrifying thought entered her mind. She wasn't sure how she knew, but she had a feeling deep inside that this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. After she got cleaned up and had stopped throwing up, she called her best friend Jinjira and begged her to come over. Still not sure what had happened or how to explain it to her, she decided not to tell her friend the truth. Instead, she lied and told her that she had been having trouble sleepwalking at night and asked Jinjira to watch over her and get her back to bed if needed. Her friend was happy to help. That evening, as Burang settled in for bed, Jinjira smiled at her across the room reassuringly, and Burang drifted off to sleep. She awoke the next morning and felt something on her face. She reached up to touch it and see what it was, and realized that it was Jinjira's hand compassionately touching her cheek. Burang smiled and opened her eyes. But that pleasant moment was short-lived, as she suddenly realized that Jinjira's hand was no longer attached to her body. Burang screamed and watched as her friend's hand fell from her face, off the bed, and onto what remained of Jinjira's body, which had been torn apart. Horrified, Burang could not help but sit there for hours in silence, gripped by a state of shock. How? How did this happen? What had she done? She had absolutely no memory of hurting her friend. Eventually, the smell became unbearable. Not knowing what else to do, Burang grabbed some trash bags and cleaning supplies and spent the rest of the day cleaning up the blood and bagging the pieces that remained of her friend's body. When she was done, there was still a deep red stain on the carpet. Burang left and walked the streets, trying to clear her mind and desperately wishing that she was still sleeping and all of this had been a horrible nightmare. She eventually made her way to Malai's home. She knocked on the door and Malai answered. The second she saw Boomerang's face, she knew why she was there. Boomerang didn't even get a chance to say anything before Malai began frantically trying to explain. She defended herself, claiming that she had done nothing wrong and that she had been cursed by something horrifying. The only way she could rid herself of this curse was to pass it along to someone else, to Boomerang. She explained that she thought that Boomerang's deep desire for fame would allow her to endure the curse's torment in exchange for what she had always wanted, fame. Besides, she had technically warned her. But her desperate attempts to excuse her actions caused a deep anger to stir inside of Boomerang. The more the woman talked, the more the anger rose up inside of her until she lost control and fell to the floor, writhing as a strange heat poured over her body. Malai stopped speaking, gripped by the horror of what she saw next. Boomerang ripped at her own body, digging her nails into her skin, tearing flesh from her neck. Suddenly, Boomerang's neck and torso ripped apart completely, and her body crumpled to the floor like a rag doll, while her head rose into the air, most of the organs still attached and trailing behind. Malai screamed as this horrifying creature lunged at her, tearing her to pieces until nothing recognizable remained. Eventually, Boomerang awoke, her body mostly back to normal. She was surrounded yet again by a gruesome scene, but this time she had some idea of what had happened. And now she did not care. She felt no panic or sympathy. Malai deserved this, she thought to herself. Boomerang didn't even bother cleaning up this time and just returned home. As she entered, the stain from Janjira's blood was still on the carpet. She laid awake in bed all night, her thoughts swirling until the sun came up. And that's when the phone rang. Boomerang sat up and answered. It was the director, and he was offering her the lead role. Tears began to swell up in her eyes as she fell back on her bed. She wasn't sad. These were tears of joy and relief. She had finally found the success that she had craved for so long. She was going to be famous. Over the next months, she would sing on stage in the evenings, the crowds delighting in her voice. But then at night, the creature would take over, and she'd allow it to feed. They enjoyed a symbiotic relationship of sorts, full of hunger and music. But neither of them were ever fully satisfied, always craving something more. And that's when the entity reached out to the creature one night as it was feeding. It held out the promise of endless victims, held up by hooks, dripping with blood. So the creature accepted and stepped into the thick black fog, committing both itself and Boomerang to this new and wonderful realm of endless suffering and death. If you enjoyed this video, a rating down below really does help me out. Thank you for watching, and thank you to our channel members for their support of the channel. As always, you're awesome, stay awesome, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.